up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Scouting the Fins here on the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast. We're also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This show is brought to you by ThompsonCigar.com. Use promo code 3yards20, that's 3YARDS 20 for 20% off your order of $75 or more. Established in 1915, so it's been a while. These guys have been in business. Definitely older than both me and Eric. I don't know a little bit about Coach. I know he's got a little bit of gray in his beard. But gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Has there been any Dolphins news recently? I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Interested to see, what's been going on with the Dolphins. Nothing comes to mind, guys.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from the draft today. Should be sitting here and really focusing on doing a 7-round mock draft and diving all the way, into the weeds with these guys. But it's the Dolphins, so of course we have some other stuff to talk about.
It seems to me that Tyreek Hill is good for one knuckle-headed drama every 2 to 3 months or so. Like every quarter of the year, you can say that Tyreek Hill is involved in some type of incident. And to make matters worse, the previous incident was just really, really bad. And it's really dependent on what the Dolphins do, how they see this for this upcoming season, whether they try to discipline him, whether the NFL does a fine. Obviously, there was no criminal charges or any charge put onto Tyreek Hill. We know the NFL has a history of not necessarily doing anything with no charges or any disputes of that sorts. But you got to wonder if this factors into the Dolphins draft plan. Like with these off the field incidents and especially what happened at the last game of the season, can the Dolphins move off of Tyreek Hill during the draft?
I mean, if you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, they can move off of Tyreek Hill during the draft. At this point, you just have to, at least from where I stand, you look at the, whether it's true or not, perceived decline from 2023 to 2024. You look at the, legal issues, PR issues, whatever you want to call them. And then you look at the contract, it all just looks really prohibitive right now. And I would have believed the team would have been willing to give up a day 2 pick prior to all this. I'm looking at this situation and I'm just not seeing that Studer out there right now doing that risk evaluation.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think that a lot of fans have gone through the same roller coaster that I have, in the sense that, when the season ended last year, that I said that, get rid of him no matter what, take whatever you can get for him. And then we got through the State of the Union and everything, and Mike McDaniel made it sound like Tyreek was going to, be the good soldier and do things the right way, and hopefully that players would vote him as a captain and all that stuff. But I think that as fans, we all knew that was, fairly unlikely. But I think that most of us hoped that we'd at least get to the season before the next incident with Tyreek. I don't know that it changes a whole lot for the Dolphins, other than the fact that I think that just, is another nail in the coffin that, we are sooner rather than later that we're going to be moving off of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and you got to wonder if wide receiver is in the Dolphins draft plan, especially within the first 3 rounds. You have a lot of good receivers that you can take in the middle towards late first, and even on early day 2. That's where the bread and butter is. So we're going to go ahead, do a 3-round mock draft. Eric, Coach, and we will do a 3-round mock draft just with the Dolphins picks. And we will have the ability to trade, especially with the PFF mock draft simulator. So we'll go ahead and get started. The Dolphins will pick number 13 in the first round. And Eric, take it away, sir.
All right, so we can start the draft up. All right, let's see. Oh,
wow, Jahdae Barron, number 7.
I don't think any quarterbacks went in the top 13 or went in the top 12.
No, they did not.
Wow.
Wow.
That's okay. All right. I feel like something similar happened to me last time, and I'm like, all right. Yeah. I of course I would take Cam Ward here, but at 13, dude, he's not going to be there. So I'm just going to pretend Tennessee took him number 1 overall, like what's actually going to happen. I'm going to put that out of my head. What are the trade options available currently?
You have 7 trade options. You have the Seahawks at 18, Steelers at 21, Bills at 30, and then everything else is in the top of the second round.
Is there any shot I would be able to get 18 and 52 from Seattle?
64% chance.
I think I would offer that deal.
If Cam Ward's on the board, they could be coming up for sure.
Yeah, not accepted.
Wow. Okay. Who are the other teams that are looking to deal?
The Steelers at
pick
21.
Oh, I don't like that though.
If you do 21 and 83, it'll be accepted.
Yeah, but I don't like that value.
So if you do the Seahawks at 18 and 82 for 13, it'll be accepted.
What if it's 18 and 52 for 13 and 150?
77% chance. Let's go
try
ahead and try it. It is accepted.
Right.
Wow. Good job, General Manager Eric.
Yeah. Try not to get fired.
Try not to get fired. All right. So let's see who got taken at number 13.
Malachi Starks. Okay.
Mike Green to the Colts, Matthew Golden to the Falcons, Kenneth Grant to the Cardinals, Jalen Walker to the Bengals. Still have Cam Ward available. Is this a sign, Eric?
No, it's not a sign. It's not a sign.
Folks, if you're listening in, we have Luther Burden III available, Josh Simmons, Emeka Egbuka, Kelvin Banks Jr., Cam Ward, Walter Nolan, James Pierce Jr.
So let me say, this is the point in the draft where Mike McDaniel is probably like not just banging on the table, but maybe jumping up and down on the table with Chris Greer, with some of the players that are on the board right now. I think he would love to add Luther Burden and his run after catch ability into this offense, because I still think that there's a chance that 2023 Luther Burden is in there. He obviously played with a little bit more inconsistent quarterback play last season at Missouri. Kelvin Banks, we've all talked about the fit there at offensive tackle for this team. Ultimately, though, I think where I would lean right now,
you still have a chance to trade back to 21 and still potentially get one of those top guys.
Yeah, but a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. I'm going to stick and pick here. I think you trade down once, and that's probably about enough. And I'm going to take Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Coming from that Steve Sarkisian scheme, does a lot of the same stuff that Mike McDaniel does offensively. I think he comes in and he's just a hand and glove fit.
Cam Ward goes to the Steelers at 21.
That would be a tremendous fit with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, but okay.
I find Kelvin Banks Jr. interesting considering Josh Simmons was still on the board. Coach, what's your analysis on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have Simmons at the top of my board, but that's obviously very dependent on the recovery from injury. Kelvin Banks is a player that I'm very high on. I see him as a high first round type pick. Maybe not top 10, but that 11 to 20 range is somewhere that I think that Banks would be a good value. In terms of value for the Dolphins, I think that he's a player that if you're trying to get the best 5 offensive linemen on the field, I think he's a player that, obviously we all expect Patrick Paul to be the left tackle for the Dolphins, but if for some reason that wouldn't work out, that's a player that could play there. If you want to have him compete at right tackle with Austin Jackson and have one of them kick inside, you could do that. If you wanted to just bring him in and put him at left guard for now, he could do that as well. So I think that he's definitely a player that I think is very capable of playing tackle in this league. I think that he has the ability to play guard as well. But I think that definitely somebody you could find a way to get on the field in the top 5 of the offensive line.
All right, Eric, we are back with pick number 48. A couple people who are off the board already. Donovan Jackson at number 44. Shedeur Sanders goes number 34 to the Giants. Caleb Johnson to the Colts. Siobhan Rivera to the Falcons. And you have Kevin Winston Jr. available. Benjamin Morrison, Princely Umunmilan, Braden Swinson, Cam Skadibo, Carson Swashinger, Travion Henderson, Jalen Rose, and Elijah Arroyo. If you're going BPA right here.
Yeah, so I think I'm actually in a pretty okay spot at the moment in terms of the board that I'm looking at. I'm gonna be honest, the selection right here feels, I don't want to say the board feels obvious to me, but there is a player that's kind of really jumping out at me in that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Benjamin Morrison at corner. I think if it wasn't for some of the injury issues that he had dealt with, he would probably be a little bit higher on most people's boards. I think getting him at 48 is fantastic value for a guy that really should be going probably more in that late first round area. Really, really good physical corner, can play in the slot on the boundary. It gives you that true number 2 next to Ramsey. So I'm
if he didn't have that injury issues, I think he'd be the top corner right after Travis Hunter.
Even ahead of Mo Johnson.
I think that those two would be competing for that spot behind Travis Hunter. I think that it would be a very interesting conversation if they were both healthy. Definitely liked what I saw from Morrison, but similar to the Josh Simmons conversation, that's going to come down to the medicals. But when you are picking at 48, you can be a little more open to that type of stuff than you can in the middle of the first round.
Yeah, I think he's got boom or bust potential. His size and length help him out a lot into coverage along with this awareness. But he's got to be a little bit more patient. It comes with this scheme too. Like this scheme helps out the cornerbacks so much a lot just because of the umbrella coverage that the safeties do. And it's really going to be dependent on who the Dolphins safeties are going to be the starters at. Is it going to be Ashton Davis, who's going to be the full-time starter? Are they going to have a rookie? Is Melifonwu going to be healthy year long as well? So it's a lot of ifs. And it's a lot of projecting right there. And if Morrison can stay healthy, this scheme should be able to help him out. And he'll be able to work on his patience. All right, Eric, we're back at pick number 52. And the 3 players taken right after Benjamin Morrison is Princely Umanmielen, Azarie Thomas, and Nick Manwari.
Ooh, I'm frustrated that I did not know even Ward was on the board at 48. I gotta remember PFF's board is a little interesting sometimes. This is a spot where I'm looking, okay, 52 to 98 is a long way to go without a pick. And I think there's still some players that are pretty good on the clock. I'm going to field some offers here.
All right, you have 4 offers. You have Ravens at 59, Giants at 65, Raiders at 68, and the Seahawks at 82.
Ooh. Let's see about getting 59 and 91 from Baltimore for 90 or for 52 and 135.
86% chance.
Yeah, I think I'd do that.
Would you couple in 129? Would you like to take that risk?
I'm not gonna make the pick at 129, so no.
And it's accepted. There we go. So we get more top 100 picks. All right. Looks like some players were gone already. Swinson, Jock Sawyer, Cam Skadibo. That's pretty high for Cam Skadibo. Number 55. Elijah Arroyo to the Bills. Jared Ivey, Demetrius Knight Jr. You still have Kevin Winston Jr., safety, on the board. JT Tuimulau. Jalen Royals, wide receiver. Travion Henderson, running back. We know Mike McDaniel really, really likes Travion Henderson. You also have safety Andrew Makuba.
What's on the board at the defensive line spot?
Yeah, the Dolphins do have a defensive line need. You have Norman Lott, CJ West, Alfred Carlins, Shamar Turner, and Vernon Brogdon.
So, as much as I like what the board is looking like at safety with Winston, and I do think Winston is a really solid player at safety, and as much as I like what Jalen Royals can bring to the offense, I'm gonna stick and pick here because I'm gonna try to play the board as if I'm gonna try to match up PFF's board a little bit with what I think the board is gonna look like as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm honest here at 59, I think Alfred Collins would be a really solid pick for the Dolphins. You go ahead, you get that really big inside presence that can plug up the run, and shows a little bit more than I think anticipated in the pass rush. So, and just given the dearth that the Dolphins have along the defensive line, I think you have to address that position early at some point in the draft.
Yeah, you don't have Calais Campbell anymore. I think that may be a little bit too rich for Alfred Collins. I think he's more so of a round 3 type of guy. He could definitely rush the passer. He's your Haloti Nagata type of defensive lineman. Big, sturdy, girthy, that can block up your gaps, plug in your gaps really well, pass rush and run block as well. The thing with Collins is that his weight is really transferable, so that makes him very, very intriguing. I think Austin Clark would love to work with a guy like him.
Yeah, I think that's good value for him. I mean, I know that when I get to do mine, if he's there at 48, he's going to be part of the conversation for me as well. As we've talked about, the bodies just aren't there in the room, so they need to do something early in the draft for the defensive line. I think that Collins is a player that, gives you some alignment versatility in terms of somebody that can play those 0 and 1 techniques, but can also bump out and play on the rundowns out of the 5 technique as well. Maybe a guy that you pull off the field to, move some of those edge guys around and move some of those to the interior to get after it. But I think that's a very good value where you got him.
All right. Dolphins are on the clock with pick number 91, and then 7 more picks later, you're back on the clock at pick 98, Eric.
Gentlemen, it is time to address wide receiver.
It is time to address wide receiver. So you got –
and we are going to address wide receiver by drafting a running back.
What?
It is time to facilitate Devon Achane's transition to more of that full-time wide receiver role. And I'm going to take Damian Martinez from Miami. Really, really good fit as a zone runner. Has great patience. Gives the Dolphins a guy that can take 20 carries a game and kind of relieve some of that pressure from Devon Achane in the run game and allow them to use Achane maybe as that facsimile of Tyreek in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I gotta give you credit. I did not think about taking a running back this early in round 3. Back to back drafts. If this happens, the Dolphins will have taken a running back in back to back drafts. And if Damian Martinez is the pick, then Mike McDaniel must absolutely and truly love him.
Yeah, I was surprised that you passed on Savanaya there with that pick. We've talked about this a lot, the idea of being able to use Achane more as a receiver. Damian Martinez is definitely more of a GM Eric pick than a Mike McDaniel pick. He would be by far the slowest back that maybe not. I don't know what Jeff Wilson's 40 time was. But definitely can see the vision there. Not sure if I see Mike McDaniel going in that direction, but can appreciate the thought there.
All right, Dolphins are back on the clock with pick number 98. Savanaya was taken, Jackson Dart, Wyatt Milam, Cameron Williams, Lathan Ransom. So you have another pick, 4 picks in the top 100. That's should be 4 potential day 1 starters for the Dolphins.
This is actually going to be the 5th in the top 100, but
that is 5th in the top 100. That's solid.
Believe it or not, the thing that actually hurts the most of those recent picks is actually, for me personally, Lathan Ransom. Because I think that he kind of provides you that bigger body in the safety room, because we're just not sure how Ifeatu Melifonwu is going to hold up over the course of the season. Show me what we're looking like in terms of interior offensive linemen.
You have Charles Grant, Anthony Belton, Seth McLaughlin, Jalen Rivers, Willie Lampkin, Logan Brown. At pick number 98, seems a bit rich. Don't you think that they could potentially go maybe another wide receiver? Maybe another secondary player?
What is available at wide receiver?
All right, so you have Kyle Williams, Isaiah Bond, who turned himself into custody. Maybe another potential Tyreek type of situation, similar speed, similar style, a little bit of off the field antics as well. So I don't know if you want a Tyreek 2.0 in that sense. Isaac Tesla, Tez Johnson, Ty Felton, Torrey Horton, Pat Bryant, and Jalen Lane.
And the defensive backs again?
For CB, you have Dorian Strong, Jacob Parrish, Noel Williams. And for safety, you have RJ Mickens, Jonas Sanker, Billy Bowman Jr.
So I'm going to go against what I just said with the Lathan Ransom pick, because I would have liked to have a bigger body in that safety room. But I think for me personally, if you can't do that, I think you max out the umbrella coverage and those center field skills And I've been extremely impressed with the fluidity that a guy like Billy Bowman has in his ability to play that deep center field role. He's a smaller guy, but I think he is, if you're just looking for that true center field umbrella coverage guy, I think he's one of the best safeties in the draft for
Yeah.
that specifically. And I think he gives the Dolphins a really good option that can fit into a role right away in this Anthony Weaver defense. So I'd take him.
Yeah, and I think that expands the three safety package as well, where he can be used as a free safety or a potential slot corner. You can move, Cater Kohu sometimes to the outside if Benjamin Morrison is hurt or Cam Smith can't do it or Jalen Ramsey is off the field for a play or two. Like, you have that versatility right there. So that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of Billy Bowman Jr. for the Dolphins as of late.
Yeah, I could see a fit there. I mean, that's the role that I see for Ashton Davis that they brought in. But Davis also has experience playing closer to the line of scrimmage, playing in that post type safety role. So I could certainly see a scenario where you have Bowman being that deep center fielder, and then you have Davis and Melifonwu on the field together in those three safety sets. So I can see that.
Yeah. All right. It looks like PFF gives you an overall draft grade of B with an A minus for Banks Jr., A for Morrison, C plus for Alfred Collins, B minus for Damian Martinez, and D minus for Billy Bowman Jr. Just based off ADP and bordering. I think this is a pretty solid 5 picks, especially if the Dolphins are able to get this type of trades and trades down. And honestly, these are 4 starters, in my opinion, especially if Devon Achane is able to move into that wide receiver type of role, however you want to position it as. All right, Coach, you are up next. We're going to go ahead.
This is wild.
All right, let's see how this draft goes. Do the quarterbacks go top 5 or not? Let's take a look at it. Whoa, Mason Graham at number 1. Cam Ward to the Jets.
Ward went off.
Will Campbell to the 49ers and Will Johnson to the Cowboys.
And Barron went off the board as well, didn't he?
I believe Barron, at number 8.
And Tyler Warren's gone. All right, so
Tyler Warren is gone.
Especially if the draft went as crazy as what Eric's did, I could see a scenario where there is somebody wants to come up for. In the scenario that I'm looking at here, also looking at what happened in Eric's draft, right? He traded down and Malachi Starks was drafted at that pick. I did a video the other day with my 5 options for the Dolphins at number 13. And the only 2 options that are left on the board would be Malachi Starks or the trade down option. I don't like the idea of trading out of 13 and losing out on a player that I love to get, a player that I like and a player that I kind of like. So for that reason, I'm going to stick here and I'm going to pick Malachi Starks at 13.
You have a draft crush on Malachi Starks, and I don't think we need to rehash why you like Malachi Starks. I mean, we all know he's a great fit. We all know he's a great leader, SEC bloodline, fantastic in the IQ, can play the slot, can sometimes even play outside. And I actually saw a discussion on Twitter where there's a potential for Malachi Starks to play at least 50% of his snaps on the outside. What is your read on that, Coach?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Could he slide outside occasionally? Maybe. I like to fit more if you're going to play him in the slot versus a tight end or maybe a wider or a running back that's flexing out, something like that. I think that he could still be an asset in man coverage. I don't like the idea of 50% lined up against a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a trend of elite safeties with elite instincts, but maybe average athleticism, excelling at the next level. And I think putting him in that position where you're throwing him on the outside half of those snaps, you're really kind of exposing him to that, his weaknesses unnecessarily.
So should I already be tweeting this out? Congrats on moving to South Florida, Malachi, because coach has him. The Dolphins may need a third safety. I think that is still a need. I have like a mid first round grade on Starks right now. Yeah, his intelligence definitely stands out. He's a reliable tackler as well. I think only an 8.1% missed tackle rate in college overall, which is pretty good. But I don't think I would trust him a lot in high-end man coverage itself.
Right.
And that's not what this scheme asks of. Like, it's a lot of 3, it's a lot of 6, it's a lot of 2 and invert 2 as well. At number 13, maybe a little bit rich. I'm looking more so towards value. But what's your guys' thoughts on his comparison being to like a Kevin Byard?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not real familiar with Kevin there. But as much as I do like Starks, I get what you're saying. I do have kind of a mid first round grade on him, and a lot of that just comes down to position value of a safety.
Yep.
Not crazy about drafting a safety that high, but this is still a team that does need defensive back help. If Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron is there, then I would take those guys above Starks. But just in terms of, being able to try to find guys that I am confident can step in day one and be able to play, that's kind of why I still have Starks in that conversation at 13.
Yeah, I think Starks definitely has the ability to be kind of an all-pro safety. I guess the greater question at this point becomes, when you look at this team in aggregate and all the things that are kind of in flux in both sides of the trenches, and the Tyreek situation is, are you an all-pro safety away from going where you want to go? And I think that's ultimately what will drive kind of the, decision to trade down or not with this team.
All right, Coach, you are on the clock at pick number 48. A couple of players still on the board. Kevin Winston Jr., Benjamin Morrison, Braden Swinson, a couple of players that have gone off the board. Siobhan Ravel, Xavier Watts, Donovan Jackson, Connerly Jr., TJ Sanders. Who are you looking for at pick number 48, or are you going to trade down?
So want to see who's available before we talk about the trade down options. Who's on the board from an offensive line perspective here?
All right, from an offensive line perspective, we'll take a look at tackles and interior. There's some good players there. You have Ariante Ursuri, Tate Ratledge, Ozzie Trapillo, Marcus Mbao, Jared Wilson, Jonas Savanea, but they all have third-round grades on them.
Yeah, and I mean, Ursa would probably be the one guy out of that group that I think would be worth that pick, but for the Dolphins, I see Ursary being a tackle-only prospect. We talked about Banks earlier and how I feel that he could slot in anywhere. I don't feel the same way about Ursary. Ursary, I have a lot of the same notes I did for Patrick Paul last year, and that would be a player that I see as a tackle-only prospect. So let's take a look at the interior defensive lineman and see what we still have on the board there.
All right, interior defensive lineman, Omar Norman Lott, CJ West, Alfred Carlins. Almost the same type of board as Eric had.
Yeah. So definitely players I like here, right? I like Norman Lott. I like CJ West. My problem with CJ West is that I feel like he is more of a nose tackle only player. He's only, I think, 6'1", has short arms. Don't see him as a player that can flex out there and play in those 4 and 5 alignments. So while I like him, I'm not sure that he's the guy that I feel can step in and be the day one starter that we need to play along Sealer and Benito Jones. Had the Alfred Collins discussion before, so let's see what trades are available.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look. There are 4 options for trade. You have the Chargers at 55, Bills at 56, Ravens at 59, and Chiefs at 63.
So one of the big things I feel the Dolphins have to get out of this draft is a player that can step in and, be confident in playing 500 to 600 snaps on the interior defensive line. I don't think that you can come out of here with, a couple of day 3 guys that are going to play 200 to 300 snaps and feel like you've done anything. And I would really be kicking myself if I traded down from 48 to 55 and the 2 guys that I'm looking at would go off the board here. So I'm going to stick and pick here. And mainly because Eric took Alfred Collins in the last one, I'm going to go with Omar Norman Lott here. I knew Hussam would love that.
I do. I really love that pick.
In a real life situation, I would probably take Collins over Norman Lott, but both very good players.
Yeah. All right. Before Eric and I get into our analysis of Coach's pick, and before we talk about Eric picking at pick number 98 for the Dolphins, we're going to break, guys. I know we really want to get into pick number 98 and my picks, but guys, it's almost playoff basketball time. Baseball is back as well. And what better way to make some money is by going on Underdog Fantasy, picking your props, picking your players on points, scores, strikes, and home runs as well. Make sure we use the promo code 3 yards to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Once again, use promo code 3 yards to get $1,000 in bonus cash instantly.
18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 19 plus in Alabama, New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE NY or text HOPE NY to 467-369. Must be.
And we are back. I know I like the Omar Norman Lott pick. He can rush the passer. I think he's rated, in my opinion, he's higher than Alfred Collins to me. Similar type of body style. He also has fresh legs. He hasn't hit over 300 to 400 snaps in a college season. It's more so like 150 to 200. So it's a limited game sample size for each season. That means he's got fresh legs. He's a little bit raw. Austin Clark will be able to mold him, and he'll be playing alongside what I think is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, and Zach Sealer. And what better way to learn alongside him, Bradley Chubb, and have help with Jalen Phillips and Chop Robinson on those fast, speedy edge guys.
Yeah, I think looking back through Norman Lott, the thing that stands out is obviously he does have the body to kind of be that really big interior presence against the run, and I think that will come with time for him. But you mentioned the pressure rates. He's got some just ungodly pressure rates for a guy of his size at the college level. And granted, I think it's fair to question whether that will show itself over 400 to 500 snaps when he's not, condensed into a small amount of playing time. But that kind of natural ability in the second round, I think, is something that, has to be strongly considered.
All right, Coach, pick number 98 for the Dolphins. This is your last pick in this mock draft and the last one they have in the third round.
All right, so let's see what's on the board here. Let's go to running back and see what's there.
All right. Damian Martinez was picked at number 94 by the Browns. Jalen Milroe by the Seahawks. Jonas Avenaya by the Packers at 87. You have Devin Neal, Jaden Blue, Trevor Etienne, Jarquez Hunter, and Brashard Smith. Out of those 5, you have 3 of those who are fast, who are speedy, and can also catch passes. But with Brashard Smith, who was converted from a wide receiver to a running back.
Yeah, and I like some of those guys, but there are none of them that would really excite me at number 98. So let's take a look at the wide receivers.
You have Kyle Williams, Savion Williams, Isaiah Bond, Isaac Tesla, and Tez Johnson.
Yeah, same idea there, right? Guys that I like, not guys that I love. Let's see if we can find one that I love. So let's go to tight ends and see what's there.
You have Harold Fannin Jr., Gunnar Helm, Mitchell Evans, Ben Urosek, and Jackson Hayes.
All right, let's keep going. Let's try the linemen and see what we got.
All right, OT and IOL.
All right, Grant, McLaughlin, Rivers, Crenshaw, Dixon, Lampkin. All right, let's go back to defensive line.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this. Double up on defensive line or maybe even edge.
So let's see. So I like the idea of Peebles here, right? Like this is a player that, if we're getting Norman Lott for the more traditional downs, that Peebles could be a player that could come in and, spell guys, but also give you a little juice in the pass game that maybe a Benito Jones doesn't have. Let's take a peek at linebackers quick.
You have Jeffrey Bossa, who was a safety turn linebacker. Barrett Carter, Jack Kaiser, Kobe King.
Yeah, nothing there. So let's take a quick look at the defensive backs just to make sure I'm not missing a Nick Emanwari down here in the 3rd round.
You have Lathan Ransom available.
So that would be tempting, except for the fact that we took Malachi Starks there in the 1st round. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double down the defensive line. I'm going to go Aeneas Peebles here. And a big part of that is just the lack of bodies that we have in the defensive line room right now. You have Sealer, you got Jones, and a couple of journeymen. If you can even call them that, they're fringe 53 players, what they have behind Jones and Sealer. So I think that I could definitely see a scenario where they are going heavy on the defensive line, trying to get some young bodies in there, and that's what I'm going to do, going with Norman Lott and Peebles.
All right, so PFF gives you a grade of C+, Coach. Malachi Starks, they give you a grade of B. Omar Norman Lott as a grade of C, and Aeneas Peebles as a grade of C. Not so hot grade right there, Coach. Not so hot.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, but PFF also has dropped Cam Ward out of the top 10 twice, so I'm not going to put, not going to let PFF's grades hurt my feelings too much.
All right, here we go. We are saving the best mock draft for last. It is finally my turn right here, and let's see how the board goes. Do we have Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders going top 5 now, or are they both going to get out of the top 10? Let's see how this goes. Wow, Ashton Jeanty, number 2. All right, none of the quarterbacks have been taken. You have Abdul Carter at 1, Ashton Jeanty at 2, Hunter at 3. No quarterbacks taken. Jahdae Barron at number 8. I think we're seeing a trend where the Panthers are taking Jahdae Barron. Something to monitor right here. All right, you have Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, Luther Burden, Kenneth Grant, Josh Simmons, Emeka Egbuka. I think I may want to take a look at some of the trade options right here. It might be a little bit tempting, but let's see what happens. You have blue chip prospects and Starks and Will Johnson. A great defensive lineman in Kenneth Grant. You have a great wide receiver in Emeka Egbuka, who, if you are to deal Tyreek Hill, even for pennies, just, trying not to get into that sunk cost fallacy, just move him, save $26 million a year this year, roll it over into next year. But I think this is what I'm thinking. And this may be a little bit controversial, guys. This is just an idea I have in my head. Cam Ward is still available here. My trade partner right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, but I'm trying to recoup some picks here. We need some picks. We need to fill out this Dolphins roster. I have a very good feeling that the Steelers will trade up to take a quarterback. And I'm going to see if I can fleece them on some of these picks. So I'm going to give 13, 21 for the Steelers, 83, and next year's round 1, but it won't be accepted. Maybe a round 2 for next year, get some more picks. That's a 76% chance right there. I'm going to go ahead and offer up the trade. I know I'm giving up Will Johnson. I know I'm giving up Malachi Starks, but hey, man, the Dolphins need a lot of players on the defense and on the offense. It feels like a retooling year. They need to get younger. They need to get faster. They need to get cheaper everywhere. And let's see if this trade gets accepted. It is. Ooh.
Cam Ward, welcome to Pittsburgh.
Cam Ward is in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
I think a lot of Dolphins fans, especially if Cam Ward is there, would be pounding the table for him. All right, so let's take a look at some of these players that were taken off. Obviously, Ward, Johnson, Egbuka, Kenneth Grant, Matthew Golden, Starks, Simmons, and Banks Jr. You have Luther Burden III, Walter Nolan, Pierce, Hampton, Loveland, Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart, Jalen Walker, Gray Zabel, Derek Harmon, Kevin Winston Jr. Eric, I know you really like Luther Burden III, but he's a short field type of guy. He's a yak and rack type of guy, but he doesn't have the nuanced route running skills. And I think that just maybe because of the Missouri offense. But if I want a guy who can be molded, especially on the defensive line, I'm taking a look at Walter Nolan here. I'm sending in that pick. I think he has the highest ceiling of all the defensive linemen. He's what, 6'3", 6'4", I believe? 6'3", 305. And he's the most physically gifted. His weight transfer is there. He has a lot of power, and Austin Clark can make this work. He's also got a really good tool bag compared to Shamar Stewart. Coach, I know you and I talked a little bit about Shamar Stewart as well. He's got that first step speed. He's got that bull rush. He can do the swim. He's got that swipe of hands. And he can learn alongside Zach Sealer. You need a guy who's going to be a wrecking ball for 4 to 5 plays. We already have that in Zach Sealer. Get another one. And Walter Nolan, all that he needs to do is be consistent on a snap-to-snap basis. But I think in the middle first round, this is where you would be taking a little bit of that risk, but trying to bank on those physical gifts.
Yeah, I think Nolan is, if we're just going off of the most gifted defensive lineman in the class physically, he's the top of the board there. Like you mentioned, it's just a matter of kind of getting his head screwed on right. Losing Campbell in the room as that veteran to kind of guide him kind of hurts, but Zach Sealer's a very good option for that as well.
Yeah, just echoing the same stuff. I mean, there's no doubting the talent level of Walter Nolan. It's just a matter of being able to get him to do it, down in and down out and play within the scheme, play disciplined, and play those high volume of snaps in that way. But if you can do all that, right, it could be the steal of the draft there because he is certainly talented.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we have Kevin Winston Jr. available, Benjamin Morrison again, edge Landon Jackson, tackle Donovan Jackson, who can play guard and tackle. This is certainly intriguing because Maybe the Dolphins can get a third safety. They need another outside corner. We talked a little bit about Morrison, where you are banking that he is going to be healthy. And when he is healthy, he's great. And this feels like a general manager Chris Greer type of thing. You take
Boomer
a look,
bust corner in the second?
huh?
A
No,
boomer
no, no.
bust corner in the second?
Not the best corner in the second. An injury-riddled player where you take him high and you try to bank on him not being so injured. That's what I'm talking about. Not one of the best corners in the second round, right?
Oh no, I said a boomer bust corner.
Oh, a boomer buzz corner, and yeah, definitely with Cam Smith for sure. Definitely with Cam Smith for sure. So I don't know how I would play this board because I mean there's still a lot of good players available. Let's take a look and see what the tight end looks like. You have Mason Taylor at 78. Maybe you can nab him at 83, but I don't know if I want to take that risk. So the next trade down would be with the Chiefs at 63. I could get another pick in number 95 and I trade down to 48. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks. 5 third round. That's 3 third round picks.
Could you get real greedy on that?
That is very interesting. I could get very greedy on that and move up or down the board. And I also have next year's second. So I could play the board how I want. But for the purpose of this mock draft, for this one specifically, I think Morrison would be my pick right here. Boom or bust guy. This is a place where you would be able to take it. And let's be honest. Do we really think Chris Greer is coming back next year?
No.
No.
If I'm honest.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, so Benjamin Morrison is the pick. I would have liked to get Donovan Jackson, but I think defensive back right now is a bigger need than a potential guard as of late.
Yeah, I thought with where you were at 48, you may have been able to push the Chiefs for 63 and 66. But again, that's just being greedy.
Coach?
Yeah, I probably would have gone Jackson there. But again, I get why you did it. Did Morrison. Agree that defensive backfield is in worse shape than the offensive line right now, despite what some people would think. So certainly get taking Morrison over Jackson.
All right, so now we have one of the first third-round picks for the Dolphins from the trade from Pittsburgh at pick number 83. Kyle Williams is available, Tate Ratledge, Damian Martinez, Ozzie Trapilo, Terrence Ferguson, Jonas Savannah is available, and I have a couple more trade-down options right here. We have the Chargers at 86, which is 3 picks, Seahawks at 92, 49ers at 100. Let's see what we can do with the Chargers. 37% chance if I do 86 and 125. Maybe if I get a pick like 181 and next year's 5th, that could potentially work. Just grab as many picks as you can. And it was accepted. There we go. Trade down again, but that's only a 3-pick trade down. You get a 5th round pick for next year and another late round pick at 181. I think that's good value, in my opinion. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, for just 3 picks, it's really no harm, no foul. Especially, I don't think any of the 3 guys that were taken between 83 and 86 were of that much consequence.
Yeah, Tate Ratledge, Vernon Broughton, and Ozzie Trapilo. All right, we have Damian Martinez available, but I think that may be a bit too high, a bit too rich for him in round 3. I'm going to take a look and see if we can double up on defensive linemen. We have Joshua Farmer. Eric, I know how you feel about Farmer. Jordan Phillips, Deion Walker, Anis Peoples, and Jamari Cadwell. Let's take a look at tight end. Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin, Gunnar Helm. Quarterback, Jalen Milroe at 101. That might be a bit too rich. Wide receiver, you have Kyle Williams, Savion Williams, Isaiah Bond, Isaac Tesla. At running back, still too high right now for it. I think.
Did you say
think what I'm-
Savania is still on the board?
I think he still is.
Oh, man.
That is where I am taking the Dolphins next. Right guard. I think he's going to play the right guard position and push Liam for that specifically because he can play swing tackle. He's got the body, he's got the weight transfer, he's got the feet, and he's got the power for it. He might just need to get a little bit stronger, but he's got the movement ability to become a competent pass protector because of his footwork. And if he just gets a little bit more weight on him, he would be a powerful, powerful finisher on some of those gap schemes, some of those traps, coach, that we talk about that they like to mix in a little bit specifically in the run game. So Jonah Savaiinaea, the Dolphins may have fixed the offensive line.
It's
All
a
right.
start.
It's a start. It's a start. And now the Dolphins' very last third-round pick number 98. Gentlemen, what do you think I'm going to go with this pick?
I mean, you've added enough picks that you give yourself some flexibility that you could go, kind of off the reservation a little bit. I know that you'd kind of taken a peek at Jalen Milroe there, if he's still on the board. Like, with the extra picks, maybe you throw a dart at a quarterback. But with the extra picks that you've added, I don't know exactly what you're thinking here.
Yeah, I think, Kyle Williams at wide receiver has zoomed up draft boards in the last few weeks.
Mhm.
I think he's an option. I think you might even double up at defensive lineman, or Milroe, as Coach had mentioned.
Yeah. I'm also taking a look at running back Devin Neal right here. I think he's one of the better running backs in this class, specifically with his pass catching ability and his outside zone scheme fit coming from Kansas. 96 missed tackles forced. I'm sorry, 47 missed tackles forced, 96 gap attempts, 122 zone attempts. So he has a mix of both. 814 yards after contact, only 2 drops compared to Devon A-Chain's 0 in college itself. 5'11", 215, doesn't have the long speed, but he has the vision, he has the intelligence. Now, if we are to move Devon A-Chain off from running back and into wide receiver, I think it'll either be Devin Neal, Travion Henderson, if Mike McDaniel wants to pick him in the second or maybe early third, and Jaden Blue just because of his speed and his vision. But you want that multi-sport background. You want that versatility in the passing game, in the running game, and especially that pass blocking ability, which Devin Neal has with 5'11", 215. With his weight, he'd be able to take those hits. He'd be able to be that third down back as well. So if I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm getting another running back. And I'm going to steal another running back as well to pair with Jalen Wright. 2 decent enough pass blockers where I can use them in the pony package. Put out Devon A-Chain wide. You have 3 running backs on the field. You don't know what's going to happen. Let's get chaotic in here, baby. Devin Neal is the pick for the Miami Dolphins. All right, let's see what PFF gives me. I get an overall grade of A - for Nolan because of the trade, A for Benjamin Morrison, B+ for Jonah Savaiinaea, and B- for Devin Neal. Gentlemen, what do you guys think about the very last pick of Devin Neal?
Yeah, I think Neal is one of the more underrated backs in the class. I like the fact that he's got that versatility as a pass catcher. Really solid build. I wouldn't be upset with Devin Neal at all adding to the backfield. I think that it kind of goes in line with moving H-Hand to wide out, which I'm a big fan of with the Tyreek stuff.
Yeah, I think that when you look at what I would like to see the Dolphins add in the backfield, they have similar runners in Wright and Madison. I would like to see somebody more similar to Achane added as that next running back. I think that Neal fits that mold in terms of somebody that can play in the backfield or split him out wide. So if something were to happen to Achane, I think you keep all those same packages in there with Neal. So definitely like the mold of that player.
Yeah, he's definitely got 77 catches in his career. He's got that workhorse back type of productivity. I don't think necessarily we want Devon Achane. He got 20 carries a game. We've seen, his body type, the ability for him to get injured, just catching passes a lot and running the ball a lot. We've yet to see Jalen Wright get a lot of touches, and I think Neal would be able to spell him. Their Wright has the speed, but Devin Neal has the bruising ability and the pass blocking ability, along with catching out of the backfield, which truly makes him a complete workhorse running back, in my opinion. All right, folks, that is it for our show. Make sure you stick with us here on Scouting the Fence, part of the 3 Yards Per Carry Network. We will continue to bring our draft coverage, and stick around with us to see what our draft day and 3-day draft days will look like. As always, folks, go Fins.